Verb tense consistency. So this is a really common error that we all make constantly. So it's important to take a careful look at verb tense consistency. So first of all, what is verb tense? So the verb tense refers to when an action happens. So you have three options: the present tense, the past tense, or the future tense. So for example, I run to the bus. It's happening right now. I'm running right this second, present tense. Past tense, I ran to the bus. It already happened, so I ran to the bus in the past. And then future tense, I will run to the bus. It will happen later. I haven't run yet, but I'm going to in the future, future tense. So it's important to be able to distinguish between these three verb tenses because when you write, it's important to keep them consistent. So what does that mean? Verb tense consistency means that you keep the same verb tense throughout your sentence or paragraph. You do not change between tenses. So if you start in one tense, your entire piece of writing must stay in that same tense, which is a problem that most of us have. We tend to switch back and forth. So here's an example. During math class, Tom raised his hand. He quickly solves the problem. So we have two verbs here, and what's wrong with them? They don't match in tense. Raised is a past tense verb, and solves is a present tense verb. So in two sentences, you have Tom doing something, raising his hand, in the past, and then you have it solving in the present, which doesn't make any sense. So you cannot start in one tense and then suddenly switch to a different one. So to correct this, we could say, during math class, Tom raised his hand. He quickly solved the problem. Now we have kept the verbs consistently in the past tense since the sentence started in the past tense. That's the key. Whatever tense you start in, you must stay in. So we started in the past, Tom raised his hand. We must stay in the past. He solved the problem. So throughout an entire piece of writing, you must make sure that your verb tenses are consistent. You stay in the same tense throughout the entire essay, throughout the entire paragraph, sentence, whatever. So let's look at some examples. In order to be able to stay consistent, you need to know what it looks like to use each tense. So we're going to practice writing in each tense. So we're going to complete these sentences using the tense that they suggest. So 1. We stand patiently hoping that. We're going to fill in this sentence using the future tense. So our verbs must be in the future tense. So we stand patiently hoping that we will see a celebrity. So we're not saying that we saw a celebrity in the past or that we're seeing a celebrity right now in the present. We will see in the future a celebrity. So that is what future tense looks like. 2, advertisers seem to believe that. We're going to use the present tense now, something happening right now. So advertisers seem to believe that people love to be happy. So we're not saying that people loved in the past to be happy or that people will love in the future. We're saying that people love to be happy right now. So that is what the present tense looks like. And then finally, by the time the fog lifted, we're going to use the past tense. So by the time the fog lifted, we were already home. So we're not saying that we will be home in the future. We're not saying that we're home right now. We're saying we were home in the past. So it's important to know what each of these look like so that way when you're writing, you know how to stay consistent. All right, so now let's look at some issues where we shift in tense. So that means that we started in one verb tense and then we changed to another verb tense. And we're going to look at how to fix that. So number 1, if the club limited its membership, so limited is our first verb, and we can ask ourselves, what tense is this in? Well, limited is in the past. All right, it will have to raise its dues. It will have to raise. Will have to do something is in the future. So already we have a problem. We started in past tense, and now we are in future tense. So we need to change this. Whatever we start in, we must stay in. So we have to make it past tense. If the club limited its membership, it would have raised its dues. So now we are in the past tense. We would have raised in the past, not in the present or in the future. So now our verb tenses are consistent. Number 2, as Barbara puts in her contact lenses, the telephone rang. So our first verb is puts, which means she's doing it right now in the present. Our second verb is rang. So the telephone rang, which is in the past. So we have Barbara putting her contact lenses in the present, and then something happens in the past in the same sentence, which doesn't make any sense. So we start in the present, we need to stay in the present. So we have to get rid of this verb rang, and we need to change it so it is a present tense verb. So as Barbara puts in her contact lenses, the telephone rings in the present. So now we have 2 present tense verbs, and we are good to go. We stayed consistent. 3, thousands of people will see the art exhibit by the time it closes. Will see. Well, they're not seeing it yet. They haven't seen it already. They will see it in the future. And then we have our second verb, closes. It's not closed already. It's not going to close in the future. It's closing right now. So we have something happening in the future and in the present, which doesn't make sense. So again, whatever we start in, we must stay in. So we started in the future, we got to stay in the future. So thousands of people will see the art exhibit by the time it will close. Now we are in the future. It's not closing right now, it hasn't closed already, it will close in the future. And 4, by the time negotiations began, many pessimists have expressed doubt about them. So began is in the past. It already began. It's not beginning. It's not saying it will begin. It's already begun. So we have the past. And then many pessimists have expressed is what we're looking at now. We started in past tense and we need to stay in it. So have expressed. We kind of have an issue there. The word have is present tense. I have a cookie. That means I have it in the present. Whereas expressed is past tense. So we have a little issue. We have begin and expressed, which both go together, but we have the word have, which is present tense. So we have some options here. So by the time negotiations began, many pessimists expressed doubt about them. If we just totally took this out, it would make perfect sense. We have 2 past tense verbs. We could also say many pessimists had expressed. So we changed the word have in present tense to had, which is now also past tense. So we have 2 options. We can either take have out or we can replace it with its past tense form so that way the whole thing is consistent. So whatever you start in, past, future, present, you must stay in throughout your entire piece of writing. And as you can see, it's kind of tricky and it's easy to flip between tenses. So it's really important to pay careful attention. So now it's your turn. You're going to read through this paragraph and determine the main tense. So whatever we start in, we must stay in. That's the main tense, wherever they start. Then you're going to reread it and circle the 3 verbs that shift incorrectly from the main tense. So there are 3 times in this paragraph where they shift out of the main tense. So they start in present maybe and they switch to past, whatever. So you need to figure out what tense they are in and then find the 3 instances where they stray away from that tense and circle them. Those are the 3 errors. And I will check this for homework credit.